The season finale of The Acolyte is here. I've been noticing that anything from Star Wars Official is calling this the season finale and not the series finale, so hopefully that means we get a season 2. The end of this season had a lot of potential for continuing storylines that could be just as interesting, if not more interesting, going forward. This episode picks up right where we left off last week. Osha is wearing Qimir's Cortosis helmet. She's more than tapped into the Force, which is definitely dark side energy. She invades Qimir's mind immediately. He looks terrified, but is able to fight to get the helmet off. As the helmet was coming off, I swear there was red in Osha's eyes. Osha says she saw May killing Sol with her hand outstretched, not using a weapon. Qimir says, as if impressed, that May can kill without a weapon. He was the one who made the mandate going back to the first episode. The mandate still doesn't sound literal to me. It sounds more like destroying the reputation of a Jedi, which also happens, but we'll get there in time. It seems even stranger that someone with Qimir's ability in the Force wouldn't know that you could use the Force to kill somebody without a weapon. So this whole thing just seemed a little bit odd. It seemed like they were going in one direction and then just made an about face right at the end. Osha declares that the future isn't fixed, which I thought was cool, but also a very stacked line for this series. When we cut to Sol and May, it was a mirror of how last week's episode ended. Instead of Osha laying in the bunk in the ship, it's May, and Sol is still there, by the girl's side, worried. They're on their way back to Brendok, where it all began. Sol wants to contact Vernestra and the Jedi Order to prove the two girls are one person, to prove they're virgins. Sol's trying to come clean, but he still is pointing fingers and trying to justify his past actions. He's about to reveal that the two girls are the same person, something we figured out a couple weeks ago, and he gets shocked, literally. Sol not being able to deliver information when he wants to has gotten to be something of a running gag at this point. May steals an escape ship and heads toward the planet. Sol chases her through the debris ring around the moon, which gave some amazing visuals, and yet another thing we hadn't exactly seen in a Star Wars project. Sol's onboard computer is targeting May. I assume to capture her in some way. I doubt he'd be shooting her down, but Basil sabotages the ship. I have no idea why. I know people really like Basil, he's the cute creature developed for this Star Wars project, but I feel like not only does he add nothing to the show, he often detracts from what's going on in a scene. He either changes the tone too abruptly, or just gets in the way, as he did here. They use him as a tracker at times, but since they all have the Force and can sense each other, the whole thing seems unnecessary. There's a handful of moments like this throughout the series where I either missed the explanation on it, or there just wasn't one. Characters acting in strange ways that I can't really put together. A senator is at the Jedi Temple to ambush Vernestra. Someone's been leaking information to the government. Vernestra wants to keep everything internal. I don't get the feeling she's trying to do a cover-up in a selfish way like Solon and Dara and the rest of the Jedi from Brendok, but she's trying to keep the Jedi Order independent from politics. I also have the feeling that Vernestra feels this is a lost battle. The senator has a great speech, really well written, about what he sees as the shortcomings of the Jedi Order and why they need intervention and oversight. It was a little hard to hear as a lifelong fan of the universe, but based on the actions of the Jedi in this series, it doesn't come out of nowhere for people living in that universe. This side plot has been interesting, but with the painfully short runtimes on several of the episodes, this could have easily been further developed and explored, especially for newer fans who aren't making the direct connections between these events and the events of the Jedi Order during the prequel era. On the unknown planet, Qimir and Osha are headed to find May and Sol. Osha is taking the lead on this. Her character is way more confident and direct by this time in the series. I like seeing her growth, but I can't help thinking it's because she's finally embracing her true nature, the dark side. Qimir officially has to train her, and she shoots him down. He says, "Last shot," and she again says no. He says she is nothing like May. May accepted the deal without a second's hesitation. As their ship takes off, we get to see a shadowy figure, Darth Plagueis, who is the master of Palpatine, Darth Sidious. I really appreciated all the full circle returning to Brendok moments, specifically the Witch's Stronghold. It had to happen to tie up the story in a satisfying way, but the series goes the extra mile to hit all the correct emotional beats as we follow Sol revisiting his greatest regrets, elevating the return trip to the location. Lee Jung-jae's acting continues to be exceptional, and the score helps him nail these emotional beats. The Jedi pick up Sol's transponder. He intentionally turned it back on to bring them there. When Vernestra orders a contingent of Jedi to accompany her, she's asked if she expects a confrontation. She says a resolution. This response was pitch perfect for the season finale, and a very Jedi thing to say. The timing of May climbing up the reactor shaft, where Sol thought she died in the past, was so perfectly timed. The pacing of this episode is excellent. The Qimir and Sol duel was also amazing. I loved the action in this entire series, I just wish we got more of it. But what we did get, wow. I wish we got to see the light whip in action, but I'm guessing they're saving that for season 2. Sol's much better prepared for Qimir this time. He knows about the dual sabers, he knows not to hit the cortosis, and his force powers are cranked up. I also liked his unique stance. The coolest moment was Qimir setting the 3-pronged attack with the 2 thrown sabers and his Superman punch. Sol knocks it all away, which was incredibly exciting, using nothing but the force. When the 2 plasma blades are locked and it's dripping onto the cortosis helmet, the visuals were amazing, the sound design was amazing, and then Sol destroys Qimir's weapon. May and Osha meet up in their childhood room, once again nailing the emotional full circle. Osha is not ready to forgive May. The reason she left the Order was because she couldn't put her hatred and negative emotions aside. May tells her it was Sol who failed, not Osha. Osha hears the full truth, and it looks like one of those things where she always knew it was true, but she's just now realizing and accepting it. The 2 sisters fight. Osha's in a rage. May is now the calm, collected one. I mean, it's right there in their costuming, the dark robes and the light. It's a civilian outfit, but it's the black hat and white hat trope all over again. Expertly done, as Star Wars is a very binary good and evil tale. Osha even gets some salt rubbed in her wounds when Pip, of all things, betrays her in a way. Osha saying that May got her way on Osha not becoming a Jedi was a great and cutting line, even if Osha was going off bad information when she said it. Sol beats Qimir in the duel. May attacks him and steals his weapon, something she'd been trying to do since the start. She throws the saber aside, breaking some of the internal mechanisms, which is important for a very cool visual in just a second. Qimir encourages May against Sol, as if she was still his pupil, to use her anger and kill him. May is thinking clear. She wants Sol to face the Council and own up to what he did in the past. She wants the Jedi Order, Senate, and the entire Republic to make him pay for his crimes. Sol maintains he did the right thing and wanted to protect the girls. He's finally able to tell May the 2 girls are the same person. He explains the vergence in the Force that was used to create them. In these facts, he's right. It no longer sounds like he's justifying anything. When May says bluntly that Sol killed their mother, it looks like his old habits of trying to explain everything away are creeping up. Eventually, he's defeated. He's no longer denying it and just says, yes, I did. No further caveats, no, but I had to. He's just done. Osha picks up Sol's now broken weapon. You can see the blue kyber crystal inside. She hears Sol's admissions, and his view of him is shattered. Sol explains that he lied to everyone for all these years because without both girls, the Jedi could not prove that they were created by a vergence in the Force. The lie wasn't just to protect the 4 Jedi who made the mess on Brendok. Osha was too old to be trained and would have been sent away from the Order without a compelling reason to keep her there. Sol's emotional admission is cut off right as he's about to say that he loves her, as Osha chokes him with the Force, killing him. The way this scene was shot, with the camera focusing on May, and then Qimir, and then Osha, was really awesome. Each person there easily could have been the one to do it. It was even cooler going back to Osha's vision of May being the one to do it. The vision was correct, since the 2 girls are one person. Osha's seething with the dark side as Sol dies. I love a self-fulfilling prophecy in a story. Osha rushes to get to Sol because she thinks May is killing him, bringing her to the very place where she needs to be to kill him. The single tear we see on Sol's face is incredibly impactful in this scene. The camera also focuses on Osha's thumb touching the kyber crystal in Sol's broken lightsaber. It bleeds from blue to red. She ignites the blade, and the blade changes in front of everyone's eyes. We have never seen something like this in live action. I actually had to rewind this part to track all the different things that led to the crystal being bled in real time. Qimir knows he got his pupil. May knows her sister is lost, and Osha knows who she really is. The red glint in her eyes that I thought I noticed when the helmet was coming off at the start of the episode is back. Vernestra and her Jedi contingent arrive on planet, and she senses Qimir right away. I was very happy to get confirmation that Qimir was in fact Vernestra's former Jedi Padawan. Qimir, having quickly put his helmet on to block Vernestra out, goes into hiding. He seems really afraid of her. For a guy who's working with Plagueis, that says a lot. May and Osha flee together before the Jedi can find them. We get the answer as to how May lived all those years ago when she fell into the reactor shaft. Through the Force, Vernestra finally gets all the pieces to the complicated puzzle of Brendok. The Jedi contingent, not knowing exactly what a perimeter is, fall in line following Basil as he tracks the 2 girls. We get yet another full circle emotional moment as the 2 girls are finally able to forgive each other for their past under the Bunta tree. Qimir finds them. Osha's still thinking about explaining everything to the Jedi, trying to clear their names. Qimir warns her that if the Jedi know that there are virgins in the Force, they'll likely be killed. Osha's allowed to choose her own path with all the information for the first time in her life. She offers herself as a pupil to Qimir if he lets May go. The girls have to split up to hide the fact that there's a virgin in the Force. I get that. Qimir wanted May dead after she betrayed their deal. Okay, sure. But a lot's changed since then. I don't see why they couldn't both go with Qimir. It could be that May just simply doesn't want to. Qimir never extended the invitation to her. Qimir has been desperate for a pupil, and now he's found two girls that are actually one person in the Force. There's a ton of potential there for training. Qimir wipes May's mind using the Force. He gets rid of anything related to himself or Osha. She loses most of her life in that moment, which is a pretty severe sentencing. I'm betting in the second season, May's memories will be restored by the Jedi. If the Force can block them out, surely then the Force can bring them back. Vernestra gives a nice eulogy for Sol, and we get a montage of her giving him a proper funeral. She even apologizes to him before she does what she thinks she has to do for the greater good of the Jedi Order. Vernestra pins everything from the past on Sol, along with the recent Jedi murders. She feels bad doing it, but she's trying to keep the government out of the Jedi Order. This also hides the Sith from the larger galaxy. Osha and Qimir, now together on the unknown planet as master and apprentice, hold hands over Sol's, now Osha's, lightsaber. Romantic relationships are not why I'm into Star Wars. My biggest complaint with the High Republic and some other modern Star Wars stories is there's far too much time spent on romantic relationships, especially amongst the Jedi who swear vows to not have romantic relationships. I'm going to go ahead and be a total hypocrite here and say that the idea of a master and apprentice dark side relationship also having romantic ties is an interesting thing to explore. Qimir is not all the way in on it either. When he had his naked swim with Osha watching, he mentioned desires, an emotion he could exploit. Their relationship could be very one-sided, with Osha always looking for that new family, actually caring for Qimir, and Qimir playing with those emotions to manipulate her. The last frame we get is a glimpse of Yoda. What a perfect, iconic cameo, and honestly, very well placed. If Yoda came into the season too early, it would have taken a lot of the focus away from the new characters and would have made people feel like they had to have prior knowledge before diving into this show. The last line is Vernestra saying she and Yoda need to talk. Overall, the ending was very satisfying. Most of the important threads are tied off so the season can stand alone as an interesting story. There is a lot in play for a second season that has the potential to be even more interesting than the first. I can't believe we got a look at Darth Plagueis. I'm psyched Qimir's still around. I hate it when a compelling villain is introduced just to be killed off moments later. There are a few things that I think could have been explained a little bit better, the main one being why Sol was so obsessed with Osha right on sight. There are reasons I can come up with in my head, since once the events on Brendok unfolded in the way they did, I get as to why he had to perpetuate the lie. It's just that initial push needs to be more concrete for me. The action in this series was exceptional. I've rewatched the 5th episode half a dozen times just to watch those cool fights. I would have liked more action overall, and I was really hoping the light would come into play, but it looks like Season 2 will have to give us some more of that. And I hope more Force-powered martial arts. I'm sure more thoughts will come up on my likes and dislikes of this series as I process everything. I'll keep this video primarily about the finale, and we're going to talk about the series as a whole in a future video in a week or two, so I can sit down, digest everything, and get my thoughts in order. What were your final thoughts on the series? Specifics aside, I think it's incredible we got a very fresh take on the Star Wars saga. Check out this video next for more on the wider Star Wars galaxy.